Good morning. Nice of you guys to drop by.
What a piece of junk. What are you talking about?
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed.
Look, don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine. Trust me.
I don't know what all this trouble is about, but I'm sure it must be your fault. Don't get technical with me.
This bickering is pointless.
Don't everybody thank me at once.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
I'm glad you're here to tell us these things.
How could you even say that?
I got a bad feeling about this.
Well, come on. Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Would you get going, you pirate?
Get in there, you big furry oaf! I don't care what you smell.
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust.
I like the sound of that.
Get a shuttle ready.
I don't know. Fly casual.
Shuttle Tydirium, what is your cargo and destination?
Transmission commencing.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in again to another episode of the Shuttle Tydirium podcast, where we are the mothership of casual X-Wing. We make the mistakes so you don't have to. I have sitting next to me, Phil Mead, my co-pilot. How you doing, Phil?
Good. I'd like to announce our new executive ewok in-flight spa service. By addressing the individual needs of each of our passengers with unique and comprehensive treatments, our in-flight Ewok Spa Service offers self-indulgence at its best. We have an exclusive team of Ewoks who are professionals and will provide you high-end customized spa treatments in flight.
Is this just first class only, or is this everyone?
There is an additional fee, but it is available to all of our passengers.
Excellent. I'm glad to see the new recruits are actually starting to pull their weight. That's good. That's good. It was kind of ugly for a while there. We had a delay in our release just because all the Ewoks were having a hard time getting them.
This is something that they wanted to do. They're actually really enthusiastic about it. I'm excited to see how this turns out.
All right. I hope it goes better than one of our other previous ideas. But I forgot to mention myself. I'm Jim Chadwick. I'm captain of the Shuttle Tydirium. We also have our cranky protocol droid, J-Bot. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Just make sure if you want to sign up for the spa treatment that you make sure to tell the Ewok squads how hot of the temperature is too hot for their for the bath, because they are known to put a little too much firewood, heat underneath the cauldron. They do. Mm-hmm. They do come from a group of individuals that like to boil things before they eat it. So it's been hard to train them not to overcook people. But just make sure you put your credit chips on file so that we can properly charge you for all the services that are necessary there. And if you have any complaints, make sure you see your friendly neighborhood security protocol droid to get those taken care of right away.
I have to say that the vegetables and herbs, the herbs and the all-natural compounds that they add to the steam baths are all natural from Endor. They're traditional Ewok culinary herbs and spices. They make you smell great.
7 herbs and spices, huh? I see where this is going.
It's a very secret recipe, so only a handful of people are privy to its details.
Ah, I see. Yes, please sign up. Fly us again if you can. While we're upselling, I might as well mention that we have actually restarted the Shuttle Tydirium T-shirt sales for Europe and the U.S. And I figured out you can actually do this on a reoccurring basis, because you need so many T-shirts sold before it actually will make them. So that way, if you really do want it, it might take a little bit of time to get through it. But there were a few people here who were saying, "Hey, look, where can we get Shuttle Tydirium gear? We want Shuttle Tydirium stuff." So I restarted the game. Blake, Mr. X-Wing, our local guy, was saying he wants to be able to wear a Shuttle Tydirium shirt and take a crazy list to a tournament and beat people wearing a Shuttle Tydirium shirt as an extra insult, because he's flying casual and beating people at tournaments. So I thought that was funny enough to continue.
Awesome.
All right. I do have a captain's question, and there is I think there's a post on the Facebook page, and also the death of Carrie Fisher, where people were saying FFG should make a Princess Leia pilot for an X-wing, and someone on the Facebook page said they're playing a game with their son, and their son picked Garvin Drays out of an X-wing pilot, and that Garvin Drays, he wasn't sure what he did, but he was the star of the match, and he just kept passing those focus tokens everywhere, and he was awesome. So my captain's question is, who is your favorite X-wing pilot in the game of X-wing?
I like Derek Clivian, Hobby Clivian here. So he's.
You actually know his first name.
Yeah, he's from the EU. He's a pilot that shows up in Rogue Squadron books a bunch. And his ability is when you acquire or spend a target lock, you may remove 1 stress from your ship.
Now, I tell you, I use that in Hereditary Cluster all the time. I love that in Hereditary Cluster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is definitely one of those abilities that can combo well when you have Hereditary Cluster ships. And you can pile on the abilities and the pilot talents. It really works well with anything that gives you stress, or other things that synergize with red maneuvers, like that astromech droid, the targeting astromech, I think.
Yep, targeting astromech. Yeah. When you do a red maneuver, you get a free target lock. So you acquire a target lock and then remove the stress. The only downside is that there's only really 1 red maneuver on an X-wing, but hey, you're going to be just like a TIE Defender with an X7 title, except you get a target lock instead of an evade.
Right. In the Rogue Squadron and I think Wraith Squadron, to an extent, books, he has like a reputation for getting shot down and then but surviving and coming back. Like I think
I didn't know that.
He misses the Battle of Yavin because I think he gets shot down and then gets like a weird infection or something. Yeah.
Now, he does not get an EPT, but you could always give him R2D6, which is the EPT droid, and give him push the limit. And what's great about that is you only get 2 actions. You have a focus target lock. And, you choose target lock, and you're removing the stress and push the limit.
Yeah. So it's like a free target lock, almost.
Yeah. Or you could give them vectored thrusters and push the limit. But at that point, you start loading them up with,
Right.
That's what...
Yeah, the danger is always that you overload with points.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do like him. He is pretty neat.
Yeah.
Cool. So... J-Bot, I know you're probably going to pull someone from the EU and some crazy backstory. Who is your favorite X-Wing pilot?
Of course not. You ought to know this one like straight off. I mean, if you had to guess who my favorite X-Wing pilot is, who do you think it would be?
Can I guess?
Yes.
Porkins.
Yes.
Yeah.
I almost picked that one, but I left it for you.
It's actually I always had this vision of obviously him with a cup holder and like a biggie fryer, a biggie drink, all that stuff flying through the thing. And I was watching something random on YouTube, and somebody had like digitally added those to his scene. I had never seen it. For some reason, I guess it's probably been around forever, and I'd never seen it, and was just cackling. I mean, I was probably laughing for an hour.
I can hold it.
Just with the I could hold it. But so because of that, I actually decided, who was the guy who played this? Because I mean, obviously you could see, at least in the movie, like, he looks a little heavy set, a little portly. Seems kind of evil to give the guy the name Porkins.
Yeah, that seems like mean-spirited.
Right.
I guess I just gotta say that really did him in, I think.
But if you start to look at, it's funny if you start to look at the names of a lot of characters, especially the human ones in in Star Wars universe, they all tend to have fairly kind of humorous names that are interesting. So I'm like, let me look who this guy is. I rarely ever look up actors for movies and stuff like that. So I actually pulled it up here. William Hootkins is the name. So I'm like, okay, so they didn't really go that far off for kind of silly sounding names.
Maybe he had trouble responding to names that weren't his. Make it sound really close. Like,
well, it says Hoot was his nickname, like Hoot. Hoot. So I was like, okay, so what has this guy been in, right? He's dead, unfortunately. He died 2005, but you look at his IMDb and he was in a ton of stuff. I mean, just an absolute ton of stuff. And I had no clue. It's the type thing I guess you get into if you start to dig into the kind of sideline characters in almost any movie. You're like, oh, I mean, it must be horrible to be an actor in Hollywood because, if you're not a big name, you're not going to really do very much. But then you go look at all these kind of peripheral characters and you're like, wow, this guy was in that much stuff.
What was his name?
William Hootkins, Hootkins. And he just played kind of background characters and side characters in a whole bunch of stuff. Like he was in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, that sort of thing. That sort of stuff. You're like, wow. He was in big movies.
He was in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah, I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Let me see if I can find it.
He was in Batman. Yeah, he was. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
He was Major Eaton. He was in Batman.
He was in Flash Gordon. I mean, it's
one of the guys. He's one of the guys who shows up at Indiana Jones's at the university, and they try to recruit him.
Right. Yeah. You're like, oh my God, this guy's been in so much stuff. You're like, and of course he did voice acting. It's like almost all these people eventually do voice acting at some point. But to me, it was.
He was in the West.
Yeah, he's in the West Wing. He's in a whole bunch of stuff.
EverQuest
Dr.
2.
Moreau.
He did the voices for EverQuest 2. Wow.
The cartoon character. He was the Red Dynamo. You're like, wow, oh my God, thought this guy was just a throwaway. Like we joked about earlier on, where it was like, oh, it's probably just a friend of a friend who they needed to play a part, and they threw him in there, and it was all fun and games, and never did another thing in his life. And you're like, no, he did a whole bunch of stuff the rest of his life. He was probably a very accomplished actor before he got put into Star Wars. And not having looked up all the characters in Star Wars, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what you find on a lot of the people who played parts in the background, is that they actually did have fairly extensive, acting careers either before or after it. And it's to me, it's a testament to really how good the movies were. Was they got people you'd never heard of who were obviously very good at what they did, even if they were only on the screen for like a few minutes or a few seconds in the case of Porkins.
He certainly left a mark.
Yeah, he definitely left a mark, and I mean he's been remembered. I think, at least as far as I can tell, the fandom basically fondly remembers the character, even though he only had that very short clip on screen. So, but he's my favorite. Not even knowing that, he was my favorite, just as kind of as a comedic thing. Whenever I played X-Wings, I'm not a fan of his pilot ability, but
I'd like to make his pilot ability work, because if you go with his actual astromech R5D8, who says, as an action, roll a die on a evade or eyeball, discard one of your face down damage card, which is 5 out of 8. So 5 out of the 8 dice will remove a damage card from your ship. And then his ability is, if you get a stress, you may remove the stress, roll a die on a hit, not a hit and crit, just a hit. So 3 out of 8, you'll take 1 face down damage card to your ship. So let's say you do a red maneuver and you get stressed and you roll the die. Chances are you're not going to roll that hit. But let's say you do. You roll that hit. It doesn't hit your shield. It gives you a damage card. But then if you use R5D8 for your action, because now you have one, 5 out of 8, you will remove the damage. So if you look at the chances, there's only an 11% chance that you will take damage and then still have it if you use R5D8.
But that's only after you've dropped your shields. That's the reason I'm not a huge fan of it. So essentially the first 2 are free. Like, they hit your shields and you can't.
No, they don't hit your shields.
Isn't that how it is? Face down damage card? Because you're not Delta face down.
No, because it goes through shields. It hits your shields. Your shields stay intact.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it does.
Deal 1 face down damage card. Your
Not
shields
just
are
deal 1
intact,
damage. Yeah.
and then you can get an action to remove it. And he's got an EPT, so he could always like push the limit or something. And let's say he does an action like target lock, and then you're going to hopefully focus or something, and then you take the stress, you roll the die to remove it, you take the damage, then you use R5D8 instead for your second action and remove that. And the good thing is even if you do take the hit, you remove the stress anyways. And I've had him, I think, playing you or somebody where he then peeled off and spent a few turns actually like regenerating like he'd been hit in combat and lost a bunch of shields. He's on the 1 hull point, and he spun off and spent a few turns and he regened all his hull back.
Well, I guess in a way it can work. It's in a sense a poor man's R2. But I guess I could see it.
Well, the only problem is it's not so poor.
Yeah.
Because R5D8 is 3 points. If he was like, hardly any points, that would be an awesome astromech. But 3 points is a little rich.
Yeah, especially when R2 is only 1 more point.
Right, and it's basically 29 points for Jack Porkins and his astromech with no EPT. I think he's not bad. I mean, he's PS7 and he's got an EPT, which is pretty good, but he's just a little too, because he has to have R5D8 to really make it worth it, and R5D8 costs too much. So either drop the price of R5D8 or the price of Porkins, and he's great. He'd be really useful, really good.
Yeah, he's one of those...
and I could see that, but I think we know just offhand that X-Wings in general are a few points over costed.
Right, yeah. So he's one of those cards that I would keep an eye on if and when we get a general X-Wing fix. Because
I could see that. If there was anything that was like a title that reduced the cost by 1 or 2 points, I could see him being much more useful with a PS7. I mean, he's not anything to shake a stick at. He can be a pretty powerful ship on the table. It's just always been that, like, when am I ever going to really use that ability? And it feels expensive as a card to pay for something that I'm not going to use unless someone is pushing stress onto me. Like, it felt like I'm not really going to use that very much. And now I'm spending a lot of points for a pilot ability that doesn't really do that much for me. And an Ascension astromech, if I use that astromech, that's not gonna, I mean, it can be used outside of that, of course, but
like
unless
push
I'm
the
putting
limit's 3 points, and that gets a little rough. You could do now with Raging Porkins.
Right.
So it's 30 points, and he gets 2 stress. You could always roll in the first one. If you take the damage, don't roll for the second one. And he basically at that point gets, he gets a free, he gets a free focus, 2 stress, and re-roll up to 3 attack dice. So basically, like, you could get a whole bunch of re-rolls and try to remove the stress until you take a hit, and you get a focus. I mean, that's pretty good. It's a lot of stress, so you don't want to roll like 2 at the same time, and you might, just take the stress after a bit. But Raging Porkins, kind of funny. 30 points.
Yeah,
for a cool 30 points.
Yeah, very expensive Porkins.
Right. So I'll go with, but I like Porkins. In fact, I've even given him a hull upgrade for 3 points, because that gives him 1 more hull point to play with and mess around with and regen. But he's way expensive at that point. But it's hysterical. I love it. You could even, I've built a list with him with what's his name? Lando Calrissian, because if he does a greedy maneuver, he can give an action, and then give Porkins, like, he can regenerate even more hull points if he needs it. But yeah, you can have some fun lists with Porkins. I'm not saying competitive, but fun lists. Not horrible, but not the best. So my guy, and I love this guy, Garvin Dreys. He's Red Leader. He's in episode 4, has speaking lines and everything. Biggs shows him. Shows Luke, hey, I've got a friend. Can he fly? Sure, go for it, kid. We're all gonna die anyways, something like that. No, I like the pilot ability. You spend a focus and you can give it to another friendly ship at 1 or 2. Usually kind of jousting at a couple ships nearby, and even if you don't need, if you don't need the focus, you can spend the focus and then give it to somebody else. And I like that ability. I think he's 26 points. He's decently priced. I wish he had an EPT. I think it'd be better if he had an EPT. But at the same time, you just give him like a general astromech, like an R2 or something, and just give him as a decent pilot skill 6 X-wing to fly around and help buff other people. I kind of like having a list with him and Dutch. That way you can.
That was
really
one of the classic wave 1 or 2 builds.
And it's just a lot of fun. You can kind of dish around, and you've got your rookies and red squadrons that you can pass things to, and it's just kind of nice. I like it. So Garvin's mine. But if we had a Princess Leia card, what do you think would be her pilot ability?
Good question.
Well,
never
you obviously can't put her too high on the pilot skill level. I think that would be dangerous. It's Princess Leia. We got to throw something on there. Well, did we ever really see her fly in the movies? Like,
not in the movies, but like everything else, all the extended universe, even in the canon comics, she's flown X-wings.
Right, and that's what I mean. Is it's like, well, did we ever really see her? I guess outside of the comics, because even those are a very small percentage of people have seen, read, etc.
Do you know anything about her flying style from the comics?
Yeah.
No, but if we do look at her card at the start of she's got a crew card that came in the Tantive 4. At the start of the activation phase, you may discard this card to allow all friendly ships that reveal a red maneuver to treat that maneuver as a white maneuver until the end of the phase. I think mild pilot skills somewhere around like 5 or 6 would probably be good. Because she's experienced, she's gone through these adventures and gained some levels.
Force sensitive, maybe not a trained pilot or an expert pilot, but force sensitive natural ability plus some basic flight experience. I really don't know how much experience.
If you follow the bloodline, then you're like, okay, so she's the daughter of one of the best pilots that's people recall. The brother of supposedly a really good X-wing pilot.
Yeah.
And at some point, what the mother of what we expect to be another really good high level pilot skill.
TIE fighter pilot.
That, like I said, so
shuttle.
Well, yeah, he is. Kylo Ren is in a shuttle, oopsie daisy line shuttle.
I can't remember what he was on the shuttle.
He is pilot skill 6 on the shuttle.
Yeah, so I could see him see her just for bloodline being that 5-6 level. Like, it must run in the family, this whole quick reflexes pilot ability. So 5-6 is okay with me.
She's gained some levels. She's got some skills. She's done things, had some adventures.
How about this? Maybe she could have some sort of like inspiring presence condition card.
So I think if you look at her card, the crew card, make it, because that's kind of crummy. Discard it once to allow all ships. I would say once per round, one friendly ship in range 1 to 3 can treat a red maneuver as a white maneuver.
That could be cool.
An X-wing, it's not insane. There aren't that, there aren't that many red maneuvers for ships. Except maybe B-wings could probably do like a whole bunch of 1 hard turns or something. But
I could see it working that way, because she could theoretically use it on herself and then obviously pass it out to somebody else if necessary. So I mean, it doesn't sound like it would be massively overpowered.
It would be a card. It would be kind of like an inspiring presence to other people. It's not overpowered because you still have to do like a red maneuver, and I mean, probably a Hawk would love her around. Or a Y-wing or something. I think, I don't think it's that broken, but it could be kind of like really tweaking, really kind of be useful.
No, I could certainly see it that way. Obviously, we're just spitballing here, but I could certainly see it because there are cards that exist in the game that force something into a red maneuver as well. So, would you assume that you could also use that? Say you've taken damage and you have a crit that says all turns are turned into a red maneuver, for example. That, which I think is one of the crits. So you would be able to, it's still a white maneuver sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I could certainly see it being very useful. I still worry about the cost of X-wings and what that might run her costs up to. But other than that, it doesn't sound like it'd be overpowered.
I'd probably put her at the same price as Garvin Dre's around there, like 25, 26 points.
I might go a different direction. So I was thinking that she could be sort of like a mirror to the General Hux crew card. So the General Hux crew card is you can take an action and give up to 3 friendly ships either a focus token or the Fanatical Devotion condition card, and then you get 1 stress token.
So you want to do a condition?
Maybe not necessarily condition. Possibly a condition. Depends on if, I guess, you could fit the text on a card or whatever. And maybe not, because there's not a ton of space on a pilot card. But have her... give her like a really awesome command and control type ability. You know,
That would be a lot more powerful than what I said.
Where she can, pump up the ships around her. I was thinking actually something along the lines of an exposed type ability where they can increase their firepower at the cost of losing their agility, sort of like her inspiring pilots nearby to take increased risks, to put their lives on the line for the Rebel Alliance, etc. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe to not fall into the exposed trap where ships, expose. We don't see expose because it's an action for ships to take it, and you lose an agility, so it's almost never.
And the 4
mathematically
points.
Scare quote. Yeah, it's like 4 points. So it's.
If it was like 1 point, I could even see it being used.
It's
like
it's always tough because the focus or target lock often nets you more extra damage than just rolling an extra die.
Right, but there are ways to kind of pass tokens around, and for 1 point, I could kind of see it. But as it is, with you lose your action, you lose the agility, and it's 4 points.
Yeah. If you're not losing your action, then rolling an extra die is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So if Leia lets you do that without using your action, that could be pretty cool. Then again, it could be overpowered.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some scary combo out there. Like we have Jan Ors already, who kind of does that.
Right. Yep.
And she can be problematic. But anyway, this is just some of my first reaction thoughts.
I keep thinking it'd be cool if FFG did some sort of official campaign or like mini campaigns, like they built up a little story or something, and they actually made not for tournament pilots. Like they made up a guy and just said, "Hey, we're gonna throw him in the story. Here's Captain Smithers. He's an imperial. He's the imperial guy. Ace of this little storyline, and create a little pilot for him, and it plays in with his character and with the missions in that campaign. But he's not tournament legal. Just to throw that out there. I think that would be pretty fun.
I mean, I don't think he necessarily needs to be banned from tournaments. I mean, you could always. They did sort of similar things with the Star Wars Armada campaign. I think they introduced new pilots there.
Well, I think it would be cool to actually have new pilots that way, but at the same time, if they're worried about balance, they could even redo. So, what if they introduced a Biggs that was not the same power level? That'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think everyone would like that. Really,
it would certainly be a way for them to test different builds or alterations to the game without having them affect the tournament play until they're sure of it actually working.
Yes, that was another idea. They could then bring it into main, like they could decide, this guy, he's now tournament legal or something like that. But to Yeah, test it out. And they could also just throw crazy stuff, even maybe like weapons, specialized weapons or bombs or something that fits the story.
Campaign-specific stuff.
Yeah, campaign-specific stuff. That'd be really fun, I think.
We're going to have a whole bunch of event-specific stuff.
Yeah. Like a whole bunch of scum pilots, all these Seek pilots or Karax fighters, or just pull out all these crazy bounty hunters or, criminal guys. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, speaking of missions and things, we can go into Mission 4. Ready room, go.
Stand by alert. Stand by alert. 7 star. Estimated time to fire range 15 minutes.
Yahoo! Got him! I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky! Chewie, get us out of here!
Okay, we're continuing on in numeric order, which is unusual for us, and we are doing Mission 4, Den of Thieves. Now, Phil, which package did this one come in?
This came with the good old Millennium Falcon expansion pack.
Now, I have to admit, I don't know why I don't like the Falcon. Maybe it was just all those fat turrets that just kind of
I think that's exactly it.
But when I was thinking of lists, as in I wanted to fly as the rebels, I did not think of the Falcon. I mean, I started thinking about all these other cargo ships that you could do, like the Ghost or something, but I did not think of the Falcon. Do we want to talk about the mission setup and what the rules are and all?
Yeah, let's. Why don't we activate protocol mode and then jump into the mission descriptions?
Excellent. J-Bot, protocol mode, go.
Because of their fundamental role in the Imperial Navy, Xenar engineers are vital to the Empire's hold on the galaxy. Their ceaseless toil is responsible for the recent Starship prototype currently in transit to rendezvous with the Imperial fleet. Alliance intelligence discovered it only days ago and offered a substantial reward for the prototype's capture. Rebel-aligned smugglers are prepared to ambush the vulnerable shipment, and the modest Imperial escort must safely deliver its precious cargo.
All right. Yeah. Woohoo! Steal the package. Get the package. Keep it away from the smugglers.
Exactly.
They're actually pirates at this point. Space pirates.
No. They're smugglers. They're what are they called?
Rebel-aligned smugglers.
What are they called if they're pirates, but they're legal pirates?
Freelancers?
Privateers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, they're only privateers if they're commissioned by a legitimate government, and the Rebel Council is a bunch of terrorists, not a legitimate governing body.
I'm fairly certain there are actual senators of planets involved, so thus governmental.
Of the Imperial Senate, not necessarily. It's actually funny because during the American Civil War, there became a problem with the North and the South wanted to do prisoner exchanges, but according to international prisoner exchange rules, you could only do it through recognized bodies. And the North was reluctant to do any prisoner exchanges with the South because that would recognize its legitimacy to the Confederacy when they considered them a rebel terrorist group. I thought that was kind of neat. All right, so sidetrack off.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that history lesson there, Mr. Chadwick.
Yes. So, Phil, tell us about the mission.
All right. So, the basic concept here is that the Imperials are going to be escorting 3 container tokens that move from their side of the map off of the Rebel edge, and they need to keep they need to prevent the Rebels from stealing those container tokens. That's the general concept. Now, going into the more detailed setup. Both sides get 100 points to build their lists. The Imperial player places their ships within range 1 to 3 of the Imperial edge and farther away than range 1 of the neutral edges. Then the Imperial player takes 2 ships and gives an escort token to each of those ships. And the escort tokens are going to be important for making the containers move faster towards the rebel edge.
Yes.
Then the Imperial player places their 3 container tokens within range 1 to 3 of the Imperial edge of the play area. They're going to want to put them as far away from the Imperial edge as possible. The container tokens can't be within range 1 of neutral edge, and it has to be at range 3 or farther away. So it can be, it has to be greater than range 2, if that makes sense. So you want to like take that, if you have like a range 2 stick, you want to make sure you can fit one of those in between your container tokens when you're placing them down.
Right.
Everybody clear on that? I know we've had some problems in the past.
No, we were actually Johnny on the spot with this. We were good.
Okay, good.
we spend like an hour reading and trying to set these things up now. It's taking longer than the games are.
The range descriptions, those are very often misread, just in general.
Making a mistake, so
everyone out there, pay attention to your range instructions.
So just as an aside, from a scenario building kind of setup side, has anyone given any thought to kind of a standardized format for these? Whether it's a
range description, you mean?
Yeah, like a number and a symbol or something like that, so that it kind of early on in like the rule books is if you ever see this as a range description, does that make sense? I
always try to mirror their language or be as clear as possible with my language when I'm describing ranges, but
right.
Yeah,
and
there's no symbology that's ever been set up.
I guess what I'm getting at is that trying to do that, from having done the missions that we have, they don't have a consistent way of describing their range increments, and I think that's where we specifically and probably others that try and do these without listening to us first run into issues, and I guess that's where I would hope at some point somebody would recognize this and say, maybe we need to have a shorthand for this that's very clear cut and logical going forward.
I tend to use R1-3 on forums and stuff, and that's kind of what a lot of people have
Yes, often
done.
I use R1 or R2. One
it
thing
shouldn't
that
be much like R like 1 minus R 2 is everything in that bracket between R3 obviously, and then R3 plus would be anything outside of range 3.
There is a little bit more nuance that people don't always pick up on. There's a difference between at range 3 and within range 3. Do you guys know the difference?
Yeah. We learned it here over the last
year.
Okay, well, I'll just explain it real fast for listeners. If you are at range 3 of something, that means that some portion of your ship's base fits within that range 3 arc swath, right? So it could be just a little corner of your ship is within that range 3. This is what you use to measure range for shooting, right? And within range 3 describes that whole ship base being completely within the range 3 swath. So there's no part of that ship which is farther than range 3 that's outside.
Not like the corner of it, like when you're shooting at something. Oh, I hit his tip. He's range 3.
Right. That's at range 3. Okay, so watch out for those. That's a subtle language thing that you may not pick up on if you're not paying attention. Okay, where the hell were we?
So we were talking.
you were still describing the setup. I think we had I think you had it at that point.
Yeah. So the Imperial player is placing their 3 container tokens within range 1 to 3 of the Imperial edge of the play area. Container token can't be placed within range 1 of the neutral edges of the play area, and it must be at range 3 or farther away from each other container token. The container tokens have to be oriented to face directly towards the rebel edge of the play area as depicted in the setup diagram. So they have to be perpendicular, square on to the rebel edge where they're going to be fleeing off. And that's probably what you want anyway, because that's going to be the fastest route off the board for your container tokens.
Yep.
Then, after all of the Imperial stuff and the container tokens are on the board, the Rebel player places their ships within range 1 of the Rebel edge or the neutral edges of the play area, which is probably where you do want to put your ships. Rebel ships can't be placed within range 1 to 2 of a container token, although they can be placed as close as they want to Imperial ships, essentially.
Yeah, like on your flank.
Yeah. Then the Rebel ship assigns the smuggler token to one of his ships, and you put that into the ship base. The smuggler token denotes the ship that is going to actually be able to steal the container tokens.
And just to let you know, it came in the Falcon, and for a while I think people were using it just to put on the ships that they liked. It's the one with like Han Solo's pistols.
Right.
You know, it's like the numbers, but it's sat my thing. It was my first time ever using it, so that was kind of cool. And the ones for the Imperials were like little coordinate, like the 3 triangles. Right. There's 2 of those that you can put on. I actually didn't put them like in the little slot for the number because one, I had a bunch of TIE fighters that I were using as the numbers between them, but I also it was easier to pick them up and move them without like, oh, here, let me go. Hey, you nudged that, Jim. You know, trying to get them in and out without really messing up the ship.
So easier to put them on the base for Butterfingers out there? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like me. You're like me.
Yeah, especially if they're going to move around a bit, which in our game they definitely did. So
yeah. And I put the little bumpers in the bottom of my my bases so they don't nudge around so easy. So if you whenever I play like somebody else's ship, I'm always knocking those things. Those things are scattered everywhere. It's like crazy. I'm like, what the heck is wrong? Oh yeah, there's no bumpers. All right.
All right. So let's go on to the special rules.
Actually, do we want to talk about some of the strategy, even just within placement? Because
sure.
I thought, hey, I'll be able to put my 3 cargo tokens like right at as close to range 3 edge as I can, but it turns out you can't. Like if you
can't make a straight line.
Spacing, you can't make a straight line and put them all out there. So I had the one on the left far forward, the one in the center far forward, and the one on the right, as far forward as I could. And that's kind of what I ended up doing. For
I had
placement.
something similar too. I had 2 that were placed as far forward as I could, and then 1 that as far forward within the.
So with that as a thought, why, I guess, as a Rebel player, as an opposing player to that, wouldn't you set up with everything? Because the Imperial has to set up first.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you set up essentially everything you have in range, in that range 1 neutral edge at the far back, basically inside the Imperial setup zone, so you're behind all of their ships?
You can.
You'd be very limited. But when I looked at it on yours, Jim, I don't think you had yours all the way out to range 3. Like you had them pushed back inside range 3 enough that I couldn't get a ship back there. I was like, dang, I can't get my ship in that. Because you would put almost everything like square across the front too. And I'm like, okay, he's got everything in front. I can just put my guys right behind it. Essentially at range 1, obviously on that neutral edge, I can put all my guys right behind it, and he's facing the wrong direction. So he either has to spend a turn, K turning with everything he has, or not. But when I looked, it was just enough that I couldn't. Like I said, you didn't have him all the way at the very bleeding edge of range 3. I guess what I'm saying. I think you might have had him just outside of range 2. It was really weird. I was like, why didn't he put those all the way up? And it might have just been by accident. It might have been,
or might have just been paranoid about putting them all the way out. Or
right. Yeah, and there is a bit of paranoia in that. But that's the one thing I would say from the opposing side to be wary of, is that if you put everything out there and don't prepare your ships for your opponent to just put everything he has right behind you.
You have to be thinking about how you're going to react to the Rebel player as the Imperial player. You have to be very careful with that. How I played this was as the Imperial, I had I think 4 TIE interceptors and 2 TIE fighters. 2 TIE fighters were designated escort duty. 4 TIE interceptors were designated interception force, right? You know, go kill the rebels as they're coming on, because interceptors are pretty good glass cannons. And I had my interceptors sort of in the middle of my backfield, and the TIE fighters up with the container tokens.
You know, I should have done interceptors. I always forget about interceptors, to be honest. I got 5 of them, and I just don't use them. But do we want to go over the special rules before we're too much into list building?
Yeah, I was just saying. That was my.
I was talking about the whole placement, and so and just kind of because we were just going over it, maybe think about strategy involved with placement. But before we get too much into like the lists and stuff, let's go ahead and go over the special rules.
Sure. Okay, so the first special rule is the steal action. So rebel ship with the smuggler token can perform the steal action on container tokens that are within range 1. Basically, what you do is you roll 3 attack dice and 3 evade dice at the same time. And if you have more critical hits than evade results, then you get to steal a token off the board and put it with your ship cards, and you have it at that point. Obviously, that's most of the time you're gonna roll more evades than critical hits. The thing that is going to be helping you is that when you don't roll more crits than evades, you actually add 1 tracking token to your smuggler ship's card.
When you tie is what it is.
No, if the number of critical hits is equal to or less than number of evade results.
Oh, there it is, Jim. Dun, dun, dun. Johnny wins.
That's a big difference, man.
Yeah.
I think I win that game, Jim.
Okay, let's explain why it's a big difference real fast. So for every tracking token on your smuggler's ship card, you automatically add 1 critical hit result to every steal action roll that you make. So if you have like 2 or 3 of these tracking tokens on your card, you're adding 2 or 3 critical results to your roll, and once you get 3 of these, you're practically guaranteed to be stealing tokens. Once you reach 4 tracking tokens, you're literally guaranteed.
All right, we did it wrong.
Stealing. That's a big.
We did it wrong. I was reading at my phone.
I rolled 6 times on one of those containers. I mean, literally, I was just barrel rolling.
You definitely would have had it.
Yeah. I was. We'll get into it, but I was like, man, this is impossible. How am I ever supposed to even tie? Like this?
Making mistakes so you don't have to.
This is a big mistake. All right, so containers is the next special rule. So container tokens don't count as ships or obstacles. They can't be attacked or destroyed. It doesn't say it explicitly, but because they're not ships or obstacles, they're also not going to be bumping. And you don't, lose your action for flying over them. So they're like maneuver agnostic.
Yeah.
At the start of the end phase, each container token executes a 2 straight maneuver towards the rebel edge. If the container token is within range 1 of 1 ship with an escort token, it executes a 3 straight maneuver instead. And I should note that this is again paying attention to that range language. This is within range 1. So that escort ship has to be super close.
We did.
I don't know if you guys were playing like that. I don't know if I can't remember if I played it like that either. It's kind of an important nuance.
How do you? But I'm trying to think it because if you're a large ship, within range 1 is really hard. You could be like on top of it.
Yeah, within range 1 with a large ship. You
smaller or large ship, you have to be really close to it.
Yeah, but you can be close to it with a small base ship, but for a large base ship, you have to be basically on top of it or touching it.
I mean, the range bands around your ship are going to be. Actually, the large ship has more real estate with their range 1 band than a small ship.
Yeah, because it's the container being within range of the ship, not the other way around, Jim. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, I guess you could look at it the other way, though. I mean.
Yeah,
I don't
know.
That's what it is.
What Jonathan is saying is the container token has to be within range 1 of the ship. Not the ship has to be within range 1 of the cargo token.
All right. We were not playing that way.
You're just playing at range 1, right?
We were playing at range 1.
Yeah, because
it wasn't a massive effect because he did have one ship that basically hovered on top of a container almost the entire match. But yeah, it did affect one of the other ones.
Well, I don't think you would have gotten.
You know, frankly, you can be flying right on top of the container token.
Yeah,
because it doesn't affect you at all.
Yep. But I think you would not have gotten as many steal rolls if we had actually done that. I mean, there were times you were, but I don't think all of them were.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the one little trick there.
You know, we're going to talk to you before we play.
It's not a bad idea to actually go through these and read. If we were like professionals or something, we might actually do that.
Yeah.
So why start now?
I gotta print off like all the missions and have them in like a little packet and basically have them in my X-Wing stuff because I'm looking at them on my phone and that's just ridiculous. I need to have 2 so that I can give J-Bot one. He can read the rules and not just rely on me
and
since
blame
I'm
you
terrible.
Later.
But I actually read the rules for this one, believe it or not. I've read the rules and made a list for this. So it's completely different than our normal thing of just letting Jim do all the work.
Okay.
He's got a mad motivator.
Yeah. Where were we? Okay, so we're at container tokens have to be within range 1 of an escort token. So if it's within range 1 of one ship with an escort token, it executes a 3 straight instead of a 2 straight. And if it's within range 1 of 2 different ships with escort tokens, then it executes a 4 straight maneuver. So it really starts moving. So you want to move your containers faster towards the rebel edge. You have to be close to the ships, close to the escort ships. Escort tokens is the next special rule. Basically, when one of your ships with an escort token is destroyed, you can just put it on one of your other ships that doesn't have an escort token. So you're not going to run out of escort tokens. You can put them on other ships after your escort ships have been destroyed.
Yes.
And then last one is the smuggler token. And this sort of works like the escort token does, but you can move it around. Here's how it goes. At the end of the planning phase, the rebel player may assign the smuggler token to another one of his ships. When the smuggler token is assigned to a new ship, discard all tracking tokens from the previous ship. So you lose those tracking tokens that you may or may not be accumulating depending on if you read the rules right.
Right. So even to go over the order, the containers move at the beginning of the end phase, and you transfer escort tokens at the end. So basically, if he kills one of your escort ships, you can't transfer it to another friendly ship until after the container moves. So you've got like two TIE fighters next to a container, and he kills the one with the escort token. You know, that sucker's only going 2.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can't pop it because I found myself very frustrated by that because the timing of that, you know, is very important.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the smugglers can do it. So you pick dials, and after everyone picks their dial, that's when you decide to move it to somebody. Which is kind of interesting because people have already put, you know, the dials down. But yeah.
Yeah.
So it's easier for the smugglers.
Yeah, that's definitely an advantage to the smugglers there. The mission objectives are the rebels want to collect 2 container tokens. So you steal 2 containers. And the Imperials want to prevent that by flying at least 2 containers off the rebel edge of the play area. And you can win even if all your ships are destroyed.
Yeah.
In true Imperial fashion.
That's right.
Yes.
So how do you guys go about your list building in your setup? Let
me do mine first, since J-Bot took advantage of my default list building style.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I wanted to use the TIE Striker for one because I haven't. You know, I tried it in one game and it just did terrible. So I took pure sabacc because I figured I'm not caring so much about defense. I want offense, and I wanted to rip apart some big base ship that was going to come out here and try to steal these things. So I went with pure sabacc with adaptive ailerons and lightweight frame, and he was my heavy hitter. I also took Dark Curse for one of my escort ships because he's going to be so hard to hit. I also took Night Beast for another escort ship. Gets the free focus and he can evade and all that. I took Chaser, who's going to hang around hang around Night Beast or so, and just kind of grab the focus tokens and hopefully, cause some shenanigans and get in the way, or he can do a number of things. Backstabber will hopefully get into some flanking shots, going after all these different rebel ships, going after the things, get the extra dice. And lastly, Wing Gundark. I was very excited about Wing Gundark because he's the one where at range 1, one of his hits turns into a critical. And I figure there's going to be a large base shipped out here, and getting a critical hit on one of these big suckers was going to be fun. And Wing Gundark was going to have his day in the sun. So that was my 100-point list right there. Pure sabacc, Dark Curse, Wing Gundark, Backstabber, Chaser, Night Beast.
Yeah, and I have a bunch of stuff on my list that didn't really come into play in any way, shape, or form in our match. Probably a portion of that was just based on the way I set up, and having it to do over again, I probably would have set up completely differently. But
Me too.
But I actually, because we discussed this in the emails about using the Falcon or not using the Falcon, and everybody else basically said, I'm not going to use the Falcon. No, I don't see any reason to. So I went away from the Falcon as well, and went to the I think it was a YT 2400, the dash ship with
the Outrider.
The Outrider with Lebo as my pilot.
But you didn't actually take the Outrider title.
No, I did not take the Outrider title. I like it. I've obviously used it. I've seen it a lot on dash lists. Seems to be the time I see it almost basically ever is if it's on a dash list. But I took Lebo with a flechette cannon, and I put Chopper on there as a crew and pushed the limit just for the ability to have at least some room to take stuff. I didn't realize at the time, because I didn't obviously read the rules quite so well, that you could do the steal action even though you were stressed. So like I said, there's a lot of wasted points on this because I didn't realize. I essentially missed that one piece. I took a Gray Squadron Y-Wing with the twin laser turret, which I probably would change. In hindsight, I probably would change that one. But with the BTL and the Stressbot R3A2, and I put an ion torpedo on it. That basically never got used. So that plus extra munitions never got used. But the general idea there was to stop his ships, to kind of slow the ships down enough.
Yeah.
Between the stress from the flechette cannon and from the stress bot to slow his ships down, reduce their maneuverability, that sort of thing.
Do you know what I think would have been better? Would be an ion turret, because I think.
Oh no! Trust me, I thought about the ion turret. What I wanted was the range. That was the main thing I wanted. Twin laser turret was to have the range on you early on. I didn't expect the Y-wing to stay alive very long, but it didn't. But I was hoping that I would have it either be able to stress a couple ships or not. And the reason I had all of that stress mechanic in there was because of my third ship, and I felt dirty putting the ship on the list. But at the same time, I was like, it's like, I'm totally going to go after something that Jim either doesn't expect or doesn't never sees me playing.
I did not expect it.
Yeah, so I put Sabine's tie with Ahsoka and captured tie on the table. And I just
I didn't have anything of the same pilot skill.
Yeah. But I didn't go the full dirty route of putting the veteran instincts on her to make.
But he didn't have to.
I didn't have to. This was where Jim was like, he took advantage of my list building. I said, yes, he never puts anything.
Yeah,
out
you
there.
said, well, I know you like to take generics, so I.
He likes to take Dark Curse and a few of those other, relatively low pilot skill guys.
Pilot skill, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, I know that a 7 will get me above the number, so that's what I didn't bother. I didn't waste the points on that, but I did ultimately waste the points on Push the Limit because I didn't realize I could do it as a stressed maneuver, I could do it. So I never actually used, in a sense, 3 actions on her.
Well, you can't like take a free. It's not like a free
Oh,
action.
no, but you
yeah.
see what I'm saying? Like I never actually took a whole bunch of actions off of it to do it. It was always, oh, let me barrel roll and then I'll push the limit to do the steal action, or I'm on top of it.
I mean, you can't. Action. The thing was that you can't do the steal action sort of like you would a push the limit action.
Yeah, right.
You still have to use your normal action.
Well, no, because the mission says it actually gains that action, which means it would put it on its card.
Yeah. What I'm saying is you can't without any other cards, you can't just
do one.
Boost into range of the container and then do your
Yes.
action. It's it takes up your normal action slot. Is what I'm saying to do it.
So I put the Sabine's Masterpiece title on it, and then a black market slicer as the illicit. Just to really mess with stuff with all the stress that was going to be out there. Ultimately, it didn't come into play just because of a couple of the other bad mechanics, like us rolling and not realizing I would have gotten this.
I think you would have crushed it if you didn't, because your smuggling ship. I assume that Ahsoka was the smuggler.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can't shoot it. All he can do is block you.
Right.
Well, what happened was he put Osaka and the Y-wing on the right-hand side. He couldn't get behind me, and he put Lebo on the left-hand side.
Yep. And it was a choice I made basically to, in a sense, force him to split his attention between the two, and ultimately it actually worked in my favor because he knew she was a threat, like that he couldn't. Essentially, that he could not shoot unless I made the choice to kind of make myself shoot. But so all he could do, in a sense, was block her, was try and move ships to her side to block her out.
And I didn't put enough defense on my far right one, and basically she went in. Went straight in.
And first turn, I was on top
crit,
of it.
Got the crit and grabbed it.
Yeah.
No,
it was that was the second turn. It actually had to land on it and turn around. The first turn I was on top of it because I just did I think it was a 5 forward or whatever the furthest one was. So I was essentially right on that top of it, right next to it. And but I missed the roll and just got lucky on the second roll with 1 crit and no evades. So it took me 2 turns to get it versus essentially swooping by it, grabbing it, and running out. And that's fine. I mean, so the second turn, in a sense, would have been realistic, a much better odds than the first one anyway. But my thought was that he knows there's no way he can shoot her to get rid of the ship. So she becomes this massive threat to that side. If he leaves her alone and doesn't get in her way, she's just going to turn around and go 5 forward, with the tie every turn until she catches up to the next one. And then the idea with me putting Lebo all the way out on the right-hand side was, he's a very heavy, on his left, was a very heavy ship that if he draws stuff away, he's not going to be able to get through. And with the container on that side, I could do basically what I did in the game, which is stay right on top of it until she clears one of them and he commits his forces, and then I can dump the smuggler token over to Lebo, and that should give him with the whole and what I put on Lebo was the smuggling compartment with a cloaking device, and with the idea being, hey, I can cloak this guy and barrel roll him if I need to on top of this thing.
I'm pretty sure illicit cloaking device is small ship only.
It is. I just realized
I don't know
it
how
now.
much it came into.
Yeah.
No, it didn't
effect.
really actually.
Actually, it did because you did cloak
at the very end.
For a couple turns there. But the worst part was Lebo comes in and gets in range 1 of Dark Curse, and I'm like, I got this, no problem. I got my focus token. I'm the guardian, the escort here. Oh, 3 hits because Lebo main gun at range 1. Oh, here I roll my 3 green dice. Blank, blank, blank. Dead Dark Curse turn 1. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
That changed a lot of things.
But the cloaking device was like 2 turns from the end when I turned it on just to try and survive. It never actually got used for anything other than me trying to survive. with Levo. But the game, honestly, Jim, the game should have been over 3 turns before that, because I had 4 rolls before that point on the container with Levo, and I never got the very last
in range 1 of all of those. I think it would have been
the way we were playing it, with not using that within range 1, which I think honestly is a typo on FFG's part. I don't think they meant you to be that close to it, because with some of these ships it's nearly impossible, to get that close to the thing with an opponent on top of you. So I mean, really all it comes down to is I'm going to put an escort ship right next to it, and you could have taken big based escort ships and just put an escort ship relatively close to it, and there's almost no way that you can get another ship inside range 1 of the thing. And like, you could have theoretically just put 2 decimators on it and just said, I'm just going to walk 2 of these up the thing, and it's going to be nearly impossible for you to get a ship within range 1.
If the rebel player blocked you,
right. But the thing is if the rebel ship blocks you, he would get the 1 roll that 1 turn, assuming you're right on top of it, and you don't see this coming. Like, you'd be right on top of it, you'd be blocked. The next turn it would go 3, the container would, so you'd essentially get 1 roll, because you couldn't take your block turn because you bumped the ship. So you get 1 roll on it before it jumps away to range 2, or it would go 2, and then it'll be outside your thing, and then you're stuck. It's behind you.
And the rebels would also have a number of ships. It's possible, with 3 or 4 rebel ships to block out enough space to prevent a decimator from flying. I mean, it's all it's all hypothetical
at this, but I could see. That's why I think it was a little. We didn't play that way, I guess, best way to put it.
Right.
Not because we knew that rule seemed a little wonky, but because we screwed it up like normal. But if we had followed the tracking rules better, even under our modified range thing, it would have been over very, very, very fast, I think, because it was like as soon as Ahsoka picked hers up, Levo was within range 1 of the other one. So I flipped it the next turn and rolled every turn until it ran off the table.
Yeah, it was. I just couldn't. And with Dark Curse particularly dead, not being able to push it further, and I unfortunately sent a bunch of my TIE fighters after the Y-wing, and blew that up really fast. But those crucial turns, if I had maybe gone and blown up Levo, it would have been better. So I made that tactical mistake, and he would have won if we had played it right. It is absolutely losing Dark Curse that first turn really hurt it. Yeah. I was hoping to push it 3 and it would move past Levo, and I'd be good because I'd have a hard time turning around, and I was okay with that. I thought I'd be doing well.
But I mean, using Ahsoka, I think you could probably win more times than not.
Well,
but the thing for me is if I could have put her behind him, which I couldn't, just because that 1 was pushed back enough that I couldn't get even her back there behind his forces. But if you make that mistake, then she sweeps up through all of them versus having to go forward and then turn around. She'd be able to start at the back of the list and just sweep through the group of them. So you'd have to play a blocking game with her is really what it boils down to. You'd have to outfly me.
Well, I don't know, because and I thought about this, and I don't think that she breaks the mission, because she's 1 ship and there's 3 containers. She can probably get 1, but if you ignore her and abandon the container that she's going after, and you put your coordinators on the other boxes, and you swarm the rest of the ship, she can get 1, but the other ones we booking down the table, and she's going to have a hard time. Well, she's got to get lucky enough to get it, and then she's got to then zip all the way to the rest of them. And I think she'll have a really hard time, because getting there and turning around and all that to get that package and get to the other packages, I think it pretty much
that's what I mean
going
going forward and doing it. Yes, but if I started in the very back corner essentially of the Imperial deployment, I could come up through 1. And remember, you would set up as an Imperial first. So you'd say, okay, he's got Ahsoka, so you're going to have to abandon 1 to give it. Either you say, I'm going to abandon 1 straight off, or I'm going to make the tactical decision to, wherever he puts her, abandon the closest 1 and then roll everything to the other 2 for defense.
Yes.
And then as a rebel player, I could see this, because She wasn't a very expensive ship. With that stuff, she was 23. And if I took the slicer off of it,
toys to play with.
Yeah, if I took the slicer and Sabine's masterpiece off of it, she becomes a 21-point ship. And I obviously had a bunch of stuff on the list that was also unnecessary. Knowing that, I could build the list to, hey, I just need these others to get in your way of the other two and just slow you down. And if they're able to clean out, like, whatever the closest one is to where she's coming in, I'm going to put all of my forces towards that one and just try and hammer everything away from it long enough for her to catch up. It might work. I don't think she out and out breaks it, but she certainly hurts it from an Imperial standpoint.
Yeah.
And I knew that. That's why I took her.
I think you could also put the cloaking device on her to help her out with her movement. With Sabine's masterpiece, putting an illicit slot on there. You can give her a engine upgrade.
Yeah, engine upgrade.
For boost. That would help a lot too.
Push limit engine upgrade. Sabine's masterpiece puts her at 25 points.
Good God, though. That's she cloaks the first turn. Assume she gets it. Say it's turn 2, but say she cloaks as soon as she gets it. Then the next turn she can roll forward 2, go 5, boost for another one. That's what, 12, 13 movement by the time you get done with it.
It's a lot of
so maybe she could get
nothing's outrunning. Nothing's outrunning her at that point. She could get almost anywhere on the table.
Well, but she's got she'd have to fly well, and she could be blocking the ships. I don't think.
No, it can be done.
The thing is that you have all those other rebel ships to play with.
Yes, and I think if I wanted to break it, I would take. What is it? How many is this here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A-wing prototypes with chart and refit. Or 5 A-wing prototype pilots and Sabine, Sabine's masterpiece with Ahsoka Tano. It's 100 points with the engine upgrade push the limit. I can't get the cloaking, but those TIE fighters can zip in. They're hard to kill. They can get the actions to grab it, and that's all you got to do.
So your idea there would be to pick up a container with Ahsoka, and then
give it to some of the other
an A-wing that was closer.
Yeah. That would be maybe how I'd break it.
I mean, I like trying to stick with one smuggler who can accumulate tokens, the tracking tokens, to get the essentially auto grabs. So the way I built my rebel list was I built around a Tycho Selchu as my smuggler. So Tycho is the pilot skill 8 A-wing who can take actions even when he's stressed. So you give him he's a natural candidate for push the limit. I forget if I put another pilot talent on him. I wanted to put something defensive on him. I might have put wired, but I probably wouldn't have really used it. So I had Tycho with push the limit and auto thrusters as a defensive upgrade.
Yep.
And then supporting him, I had a B-wing with Jyn Erso crew through the B-wing E2 modification that adds a crew slot to the B-wing.
A B-wing would be good because it's got a pretty good dial for knife fighting.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's hard to kill, and it can put out some hurt.
Right, and the Jyn Erso and having the Jyn Erso crew is great because the Imperial flight patterns are going to be easy to predict because they have to come after the smuggler, and Jyn Erso is a crew that let me read her out for you guys in case you don't have encyclopedic knowledge, listeners.
We know J-Bot does.
So Jyn Erso is action. Choose one friendly ship at range 1 to 2. Assign one focus token to that ship for each enemy ship inside your firing arc at range 1 to 3. You can't assign more than 3 tokens this way. So if there's stuff in your firing arc, you can hand off focus tokens to a friendly ship at range 1 to 2. So I was handing off focus tokens. And you would think that I'm probably handing them to Tycho, but I was actually handing them to Biggs, who was also in this list.
Oh.
Because of course he was.
Of course, because...
Yeah, I was like, okay, so when is he going to discuss Biggs? Because I just made the assumption he was in this list somewhere.
Exactly.
I never use Big, so I never really think of him because I just think he's too boring.
Well, sure. I mean, he's an obvious choice.
Yeah, but you're trying to break
90% of scenarios. But yeah, the mission here, my purpose in playing these scenarios is always to test to see if it can be broken. So like what J-Bot did with Ahsoka Tano is a great example of how you could break a mission. And it's something actually I should add on my standard list of mission breaking mechanics is a ship that you can't shoot.
Yeah, you're gonna have to add that one on there. It was funny because I was sitting there at work one day and I read the rules and I'm like, wait a minute, so I just need something that can't be shot at. I was like, I seem to recall a ship that recently was released that I was gonna get anyway that has that ability. I didn't realize I could get it for so cheap. I'll be honest with you. I was like, man, I could get this for really cheap.
Yeah.
And make it near unhittable because if you put Ahsoka and Veteran Instincts on it, there's only a couple of pilots in the game that can actually shoot at
and they're kind of unlikely to show up in this kind of scenario.
Right.
Yep.
Just even beyond just Jim's normal predilections.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to see Vader with Veteran Instincts on the table anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So I had Biggs. I think I had some defensive upgrades on Biggs as well. Certainly an astromech with integrated astromech to give him a little more beef in terms of hull. I think that might have... did I have space for another B-wing on... I think I had another B-wing on top of that. Let me double check here. But I think I had another B-wing. Yeah, I had another B-wing in that list just for extra beef and attacking power. I think I probably should have gone with an X-wing in retrospect now, because it could be a little faster, and that might have helped.
Yeah.
And basically what I did was I angled for a close container, sort of not head directly towards it, but sort of at an angle, so that I could start my turn early with Tycho and the rest of the group, and then start putting them on course for other containers after that, passing that first one. And what happened was I remember as the Imperials, I had four TIE interceptors sort of in the middle backfield that were going to respond to rebels showing up, and 2 TIE fighters, one with each of 2 cargo tokens, escorting those the container tokens up the field. So TIE interceptors moved in to intercept. Rebels engaged. I think that there weren't many shots exchanged on the first pass, the first turn, because I think everyone was out of range pretty much. But Tycho picked up a tracking token because he didn't pick up the...
And you started on the edges, or you started back on the...
Yeah, on the neutral edges, sort of an angle, that 45-degree angle towards the...
Yeah, that's basically what I did.
And Tycho picked up a tracking token there. And what I didn't do is I didn't commit to that container token, because A-wings are so fast that I was able to, do a 3-bank and a boost and be on top of the middle container token and roll against that as the TIE interceptors were swooping around, and Biggs trying to stay as close as he could to Tycho.
Right.
And the B-wing supporting, giving free focus tokens to Biggs to keep him alive.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense what you're doing. I guess it's more or less a matter of how well the rolls go, is what it sounds like, and that's what it felt like.
It's a matter of time too. It's how many rolls I can get with Tycho, because after a certain point, you're just automatically picking up the containers.
Yeah.
So keeping fire off of Tycho through Biggs, keeping Biggs up with the Generso crew, and then eventually helping keep, once Biggs eventually goes down, keeping Tycho up by feeding him focus tokens also.
I'm surprised you didn't think of the Sabine's masterpiece.
Yeah, I didn't pop in my mind.
Huh. All right, J-Bot, you got a.
You're up. Got one up.
Yeah, ding ding! I got a breakable piece that no one else found. I was sitting there thinking. I think I told Jim. I said I think I might have found a way to break this before we started, but I could have done better. I obviously didn't think of the engine upgrade cloaking device, a super move for her. But
Yeah, I think it was pretty clever. I don't think it breaks. At least the one that you had didn't.
No,
It
ruin the mission.
But
the version I had didn't. But if I had honestly thought from Phil's point of view and had that kind of like cloaking device, I mean, I can't do that number in my head, but let's see, 5 plus the cloaking device is 7 plus the 1 for your ship, 8, 9 for the end of the thing. A boost gives you right around 10 or 11 movement in one turn. And then at the end of it, you can cloak
5
again.
plus 2 plus 1 plus 3.
Yeah.
And that's how many ship bases you're able to move.
Yeah, I mean that's a ludicrous amount of distance in one turn, and still not be able to be shot. That's the second piece of it. And obviously, get to the end of it, and cloaking doesn't help you other than to just have the maneuverability that you might want. So, yeah, I think I could have done better in my breaking, but it's first tentative steps into it.
I think I heard the yes, it's broken alarm in the background.
It's an alarm going off.
Mission's alarm.
Yeah. So I did win as the rebels. J-Bot, did you say you won your mission?
Well, technically, I lost. We weren't doing the tracking tokens right. But
moral victory.
I had so many attempts at the thing with
you
Lebo.
certainly should have won.
You know,
if
I
you
remember
rolled
actually
more than 4 times, then you absolutely should have.
I remember the first time, I was getting ready to pull out a tracking token, and you were like, "No, you have to have more than." And I was
No, that wasn't me. I
it was you.
Say that. I said I'm pretty sure it was less than, and you're like, no, it's a tie. I'm like, okay, it's a tie. That doesn't make, because I remember complaining the whole time, although I do that anyway. Like, it's impossible. I can't even get a tie. Like, how is this even going to work? And
because I was going to pull it out, and you were like, no, you can't.
I don't remember that. I think you're changing that to make it sound like I made the mistake, Jim.
Well, we both made the mistake, but I'm saying it wasn't necessarily just me.
Oh, yeah, we both certainly did, but I'm taking the moral victory on that one because I had so many rolls at it with Lebo, and it was disappointing.
If you
it was like, I finally got a crit
times,
to evade.
Yeah, if you rolled more than 3 times, then the 4th should have been automatic pickup.
Right. So it was but obviously we were doing that wrong with the range, at least according to the rules. I think the range piece for even attempting the steal needs to be adjusted. So otherwise, I feel like the rebels would have a most impossible task at it. But if you were able to succeed at it, I guess it's not completely impossible.
Yeah, I mean it's not impossible, but
well, so here's a question: if you guys were going to be playing, like, if you were thinking what would be fun to do instead of trying to break it, if you said, what would be fun to fly for this list? Like, if I'm thinking some arcs would be some good, Arc 170s would be some good rebel ships to bring into this list, just because, they got the arc and probably give them vectored thrusters for barrel roll. They're pretty sturdy. You take a bit of focus fire on them to knock them down, and like give them tail gunner or something, and they can just go pew 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 all over the place. I think I don't know. I think that would be fun for me as a rebel player. What type of ships would maybe throw in a U-wing there, just because I haven't flown mine yet and I want to. If you were not thinking about how to break it, what would be like ships you would have fun with in this mission? Like if we're playing for funsies, not trying to break it, what would be, something balanced and fun?
I know from my side, I'd consider taking K-wings because I love K-wings. And they allow you to kind of recover faster. They don't have a K-turn, which is odd on a K-wing, but they would allow you to get to the boxes pretty much the first turn if you're willing to slam on them, and then you can turn around and catch back up to them. And they're pretty beefy ships, so they can stand up to a lot of fire, especially if you have 3 or 4 of them on the table. And it wouldn't be a very fancy list, but you could get, I think, 4 of them on the table with a handful of points to kind of spread around if you wanted to play with some of the other stuff. But it would be interesting to see what you would do against just 4 of them rushing forward against you could basically put them into 2 wings of 2, and that's a lot of hull point and shield to get through. And really you only need a couple rolls, like maybe 3 rolls on average, I would think, on both on 2 boxes, and that's all it takes if you've got one ship that's able to do it and get the tracking tokens.
I'm trying to think. Thematically, I would want to see some sort of freighter on the table being the smuggling ship, right?
Yeah.
So the mission was originally designed with the Millennium Falcon in mind.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense thematically. Especially, because the whole mission is about picking up cargo tokens that supposedly have Imperial fighter parts inside them. And I think that, like, when I played this, I had Tycho Celchu in an A-Wing picking up cargo tokens.
Right.
Or you had Ahsoka Tano and a captured TIE fighter picking up cargo tokens? Doesn't make much sense.
Well, they could adjust. Obviously, the rules could be adjusted to say that it requires a large base ship to be within range.
Although I'd also certainly accept Hawks.
Yeah.
You could just, spell out. You can use Hawks, YT 2400s, VCX 100, or YT 1300. Those can be your smuggling ships. So I might want to use one of those in a list and try to make that work as a smuggling ship. Maybe a Hawk with a cloaking device, but of course you'd have to be scum for that to work.
You'd have to be insane to make that work.
Yeah, I mean, I would try and build around that. Build around a freighter being the smuggler.
If I was Imperials, I probably should have used TIE interceptors, but I was thinking, this is like, well, maybe because if it was important enough cargo, they would have TIE interceptors. But I'm thinking, just throw some TIE fighters, standard TIE squad, But I did like the TIE Striker. I really felt like I flew it well. Like, it would get that boost and then do a turn, and I was zipping around my own TIE fighters, and I was getting people in arc, and I was lighting up with like extra 4 dice.
Yeah, it's actually a really good ship to be for this kind of mission because it can be fast, it's adaptable, it has good attack power. The main failing of the TIE Striker is that it's not very durable, but Rebels are probably not going to be concentrating much on shooting your ships. TIE Strikers are good for this mission.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else would be good for the Imperials.
Stuff that can push through, I don't know if we're talking about good for, out and out winning the mission, then stuff
or just
that can
fun,
push through.
like fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking TIE fighters just because that's...
Yeah, TIE fighters are always fun.
Yeah, I always hate that they feel like they have to introduce a new ship every movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, just TIE fighters should be good enough, They've got X-Wings, they've got Y-Wings, they didn't throw in a new, Rebel fighter. Just do TIE fighters. But
haven't they introduced a new Rebel ship in every movie?
Not episode 7. Well, episode 7 had the T-70, but...
Yeah, that's a new ship, technically.
Yeah, but see, that's one of the things I was thinking about, like, doing some sort of, like, what if you had an event that was all episode 7 ships, all the new stuff, and you've got, the Batwing, you've got the Special Forces TIE Fighter, you have the FO. That'd be really cool, those options, and the Resistance has T-70.
So far. I mean, yeah. I think that we'll see the Resistance transport at some point.
Yeah. Or bomber or something. No,
well, the transport thing that showed up in episode 7. Remember that?
The quad jumper?
No.
Oh,
the Leia's ride. You guys don't remember this?
I'm blanking out on it.
You remember? Okay, after Maz Kanata's castle gets all blown up, after that fight, Leia shows up in a ship, and the ramp drops down, and C-3PO's there with the red arm in your face.
I remember.
The rebel troopers with the funky green goggles jump out. They're like, hup, 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 hup.
I kind of remember that, but not too much. I don't remember what ship it was. Yeah.
It looks kind of like okay, the ship's background.
If
you, yeah, go ahead and look it up. It's based off. It's like a junk ship that's based off of a B-wing that's been converted by the Resistance to work as a troop transport instead of like an attack fighter. There's like a B-wing Mark II in this universe, which we haven't seen, and they pretty much welded on a troop compartment in the middle.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Oh, I see it now. Oh, yeah, that thing looks like a hunk of junk.
Yeah, it's very odd looking, but yeah, I definitely see it.
I would say it's very possible that we see that as a ship in
I hope
hypothetical
not.
wave 11.
Well, it's got a Lego set apparently. So,
it does.
Yeah.
So that means we'll see it eventually.
And you can build your own out of the pieces that you have, and it's about the same thing.
All right, Cheapo Jim chimes in.
No, I'm just thinking it looks like crap. It looks like something you cobbled together, and just building your own thing would probably just as good, if
I
not
did the same
better
thing with my Legos when I was a kid, but I hardly ever bought kits when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, we didn't have.
They cost like $50 or
like
something. It's
a big
stupid.
bucket of them.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and what's the fun of going off in the instructions? Make your own ship. Anyway, tangent to Legos.
One other question or idea about this: what happens if you had Scum instead of Rebels stealing it?
Scum totally works as a faction for this mission. Obviously, when it came out, Scum were not a faction. I think that if this mission were written today, it would have a clause that says you can play as Scum.
Yeah, what Scum ships would you take?
What Scum ships would I take? Hawk. Hawk would be my smuggling ship with a cloaking device. Like that would definitely be what's going on. There's a number of other possible Scum ships that work as a smuggler too. I mean, the Lancer, Pursuit Craft, the
that'd be a good one.
The
Particularly,
Jumpmaster.
So imagine barrel rolling the escorts away from the cargo.
Yeah, with tractor beams.
Five quad jumpers. I think that's the perfect list for everything now.
The quad jumpers could take them, that's for sure. I almost think even like a fire spray with the dual arc might be interesting.
Sure.
And even like the Mad Bomber to toss out crazy bombs everywhere to get into the Imperial's way could be pretty fun.
Yeah, those are all good possibilities.
Yeah. Oh, imagine if you were the Imperials, you took a Lambda shuttle as the escort, you plopped it right down in one of those suckers.
Yeah, that's what I was saying with the decimators, is that it makes it very difficult you got to hammer through all that hole, or basically run a ship right next to it or right behind it.
Yeah,
just to,
I would say that the counter to that tactic is blocking as rebels.
Yeah, because you could do 2 Lambda shuttles for 42 points and park them right on top of the thing. You'd have to get out front to the blocking though.
You take the decimator with the one that bumps you, does damage.
That'd be good.
Yeah, or even anti-pursuit lasers on the Lambdas would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it would be it might give you some trouble as the rebel, but I think that you could definitely work around it in most cases.
Yeah. I think Brobots would have a fun time with this mission.
Yeah.
They're pretty, they're pretty deadly and having two
They're
of them.
They're fast enough to really...
Yeah.
They would have trouble lingering at on a container to roll on it more than once. But they could definitely move between containers pretty fast.
Yeah. Do you think the Houndstooth would? Or is that if it had a hard time turning around kind of thing?
Well, it can do the stop maneuver and take this action because you can do it on you can steal on a stressed ship. So.
Yeah, and I do even think the Karax fighters would do well in a mission like this because they're like X-wings, a little bit cheaper, but they have that one hard turn.
Yeah, it's
you want to get in and knife fight around these packages, and you want something that's relatively cheap that can hurt something without dying.
Because they're probably not going to be getting shot at.
Right. Or even if they were, like you could say a Seek with, like an ion cannon or even heavy laser cannon or something like that. But you shoot that up for a bit and it could pop. But like a Karax, I think, would have a little bit more staying power and dish out the hurt. Those things could, they're pretty deadly.
Yeah, in numbers,
so.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not.
You could easily fit like 3 of them,
Yeah. 3 of them coming in, jousting some cargo.
Right. Yeah, the Karax, one of the main downfalls of the Karax in the metagame is that it has no repositioning. But repositioning isn't going to be as important here because Imperial movement is going to be fairly predictable. They have to go after the smuggler. They have to protect the containers. So there isn't going to be. You can't be if you play this as an Imperial and you're like arc dodging out of the way and playing cagily, you're probably not going to do well because you need to kill the smuggling ship fast.
Right.
And you need to stick with the container tokens with your escorts to walk them off the board fast.
And I think it's one hard turn helps it like do the turnarounds and get where it needs to and things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe even Cobra Talonbane with his bonus, get up close.
Maybe.
Extra shots.
Maybe.
What about the Mist Hunter? It's kind of like a B-wing. It's not quite as maneuverable. It's got some of those red things, but it could barrel roll if you took the title, and it could take the target lock. It could be kind of nasty too to get in there and blast things.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern with that kind of ship is that it's not fast enough to stick with the container tokens as they're flying off, and moving between the container tokens. So if you start on one side, like when I played with my B-wings, I had trouble. They had trouble keeping pace with the container tokens after the first one.
Gotcha. It can go 4 forward, but it doesn't have the 3 hard turn and the 3 bank as red. So, yeah, you could cloak. You could go for the actual Mist Hunter and cloaking and etc. to help out, but yeah, it's not quite as maneuverable, I think, as you need it to be. Not bad, but
no, it would be interesting. But
yeah.
In general, I think this mission is actually pretty good. It could definitely use a no Ahsoka Tano, no captured tie rule.
I don't think it necessarily breaks it.
I think you don't want that.
Well, I think you could build a build that we described that would be pretty horrendous. But if you didn't build that build, I don't think it necessarily breaks it.
Exactly. That's why I think you should keep it off. That's why I would ban that ship.
I kind of like the idea that she comes up and she, sneaks in, and I'm just a TIE fighter too. Zoink.
Yeah, or maybe the better way to do it would be that if you take the steal action, if we could write like a condition card for this whole mission, a new addendum for Ahsoka Tano, that you say after you try to steal the container token the first time, the Imperials can shoot at you. Then I would say it's totally cool.
Yeah, the thing that's funny is Jason, Punisher Jason, I believe is what he's been called. He really hates the captured tie. He really hates the Sabine's thing. And
does he?
And oh yeah, he's like, that doesn't make any sense. Look at the paint job. It's obvious. And I told my rebuttal to that as a joke is it's like, well, obviously the higher pilot skill you have in the Empire, you're allowed to paint your ship because Soontir Fel has a red line down the side. So if you're Joe Blow Academy guy, you're like, man, one day I'm going to get good enough to have a red stripe on my ship. And then you see a ship fly by that's like bright orange and all sorts of stuff. You're like, holy crap, that guy's got to be amazing. Is that Vader? Like going, no one's allowed to paint their ship that bad. Even Soontir Fel, and he's like a master of the academy sort of thing. So that's always my rebuttal to it, is that they're so amazed that there's an Imperial pilot that has that kind of paint job that they that
and if he's that
afraid to shoot at
good,
it. Right.
you shouldn't shoot at him. Like, he's doing weird things, doesn't make sense. But if
Must
he's
know
that
what
good a
he's
guy, are you going to fire on him?
Right, he must be important, and he knows what he's doing. So don't mess with him.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it at the time when this ship came out, but I played around with this idea before of a captured ship, or like a fake transponder ship.
Yeah.
And I always had had some way for the other team to identify it without it shooting.
Well, just in general for the paint, I think having it painted yellow makes it obvious so that you don't get confused in the table when you're playing a game.
Right.
But yeah. I think even within the reality of the game, you could say that a lot of these ships work off sensors. You know, the viewpoint.
Right. It's not going to be visual sensors.
There's a big window in the front. You don't necessarily eyeball things as much.
Right.
Yeah, it's the scale's not right on the table, obviously. So that distance, it might be so far they can't see the paint job. Anyway.
Yeah. Or there could be different paint jobs, like the Mining Guild in Star Wars Rebels has TIE fighters that are yellow, and maybe different squadrons are painted different up. So there's
but in a real situation like today, even today, fighter pilots aren't identifying friendly fighter pilots by their tail markings. They have transponders that identify them as friend or foe. So Imperials would have the same thing. Ships that they knew were stolen would change their codes or whatever. So it's difficult for rebels to. It should be difficult for rebels to just fly around with stolen Imperial ships, but obviously there's good precedent for rebels flying Imperial ships with stolen codes.
Yeah. Good thing it would never happen to the Shuttle Tydirium.
No. Exactly.
Exactly. All right. We talked about Mission 3 a lot more than I thought we would.
Well, this is Mission 4, don't you recall?
Oh, Mission 4. Sorry, Mission 4 than I thought we would. Yeah. So,
all right.
It was funny, even if we messed it up. Almost makes me want to go back and do it again. But we had too much other stuff going on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, was there anything else that we wanted to touch on?
Do we have time? Because
we've gone pretty long now.
Yeah, we could always save things. We had a request on the Facebook page for a State of X-Wing, and we could always push that one off. I know the State of the Union's kind of come and gone, but
State of the Empire address.
State of the Empire address. And I know another podcast did the same thing, Minox Squadron, which has caused some hubbubaloo on the forums. And we had a request for it a couple weeks ago. And I've been kicking around the ideas, but I think we've kind of gone too long at this point. Yeah,
we would end up going like another 45 minutes if we talked about it, I suspect. So maybe we should delay.
Yeah, just make that the focus of the next episode, and we can have all the time we need.
That's right.
Yeah, give us time to maybe play a couple rounds of the next mission or do some play testing or Mario Kart. That's the one thing is like we've got all these things in the back burner to do, and we record, but we've got to run these new missions and stuff to talk about it. So it's almost like someone's like, "Hey, you want to pick up a game, casual game?" I'm like, "I can't. I got to run all these crazy stuff because I've got an agenda to do."
Yeah.
So I haven't even flown my U-wing yet. So yeah. Cool. All right. So I think that should settle it for this particular flight. We'll tune in next time for a state of the game address, State of the Empire. Thanks again for flying. I hope you took advantage of our Ewok cabin crew. So
massage.
Service.
Yeah, massage. Yeah.
I hope you didn't abuse our Ewok cabin crew.
Yeah,
in some way.
What I meant. All right.
That's our job.
So, thanks again for flying Shuttle Tydirium. We're the mothership of Casual X-Wing, and we'll catch you next time.